Kevin?
Morning. How you doing, Sully?
Hey, how's it going, man? Thanks for taking a few minutes with us this morning. I want to jump right into the high school football last weekend, championship weekend. We heard from Mike McGarry earlier in the show, and what a great weekend for high school football. I mean, you had 6 games and some really great storylines. What did you take away from last weekend?
I think the big thing was that, the teams that came out with the championships were definitely the better teams that day. They were the teams that came through and, did what they had to do, made the plays when they had to be made, and, really executed and, basically, kept their mistakes to a minimum. I think it was a great weekend. The way they split it up on Saturday and Sunday proved to be a great opportunity for a lot of fans who are interested in seeing maybe another team, that they hadn't seen but had heard about. And just a great way to wrap up, what turned out to be another very nice season.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool that they had all those games at Rowan University, like you said, split up between Saturday and Sunday. It really gave fans a chance to get down there somewhere local and see the best teams in South Jersey. I hope they keep that going. Really cool idea.
Yeah, I don't see why it would change. I think the only thing that would possibly alter it would be some form of a tournament towards a state championship, but that's not going to happen. So we'll take it for what it is, and look forward to that first weekend in December every year.
Yeah, we talked with Coach Tim Watson of Cedar Creek and also Colton Bonsall, one of the senior guys on that squad, and what an amazing game. You and I were both out there for that game, and how surprised were you that they came back and won that game? I mean, West Deptford, like Coach Watson said, really the class of South Jersey Group 2 and such a tough team to beat with that offense they run, and really an amazing job by Cedar Creek to come back and win that game.
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I think what really set the tone was Bo Melton's run on the last play of the first half. And, I think to that point, Cedar Creek really hadn't done too much. And then to that point, Bo Melton had been kind of quiet, in comparison to the way he had played a lot of games. And, I think, they go into the locker room. He goes 67 yards. He's dragged down at the 1, but they go into the locker room. Sure, they wanted a touchdown there, and that would have really been a huge momentum switch. But I think they go into the locker room there feeling pretty good that, look, hey, we're just a yard away from being on the scoreboard, and we're right here. Look what we just did. We're going to get the second half kickoff. Let's kind of continue that momentum. Let's ride what that last play really did for us. And I think that's what they did. And they come down, they score. And, they really, it got them right back into the game. And, I'm convinced that whenever Bo Melton is on the field for them, they are not out of the game. So, because of the quick play capability that he has amongst other kids too. So, by no stretch did I think the game was over at that point. At halftime, I really thought that Cedar Creek was back in it. And, obviously what Bo was able to do and the rest of the guys in the second half, clearly showed that they were not going to let the fact that they didn't score a touchdown at the end of the first half really, bother them. They put that away, and then they went back to work.
How impressed were you with Jesse Mills, the quarterback for Cedar Creek? I mean, running a 2-minute drill in high school, like Coach Watson said, is really a tough thing to do. A lot of these teams, they're more used to passing than a lot of teams, but still, that kind of pressure situation kind of really showed the maturation process of him. And he's been starting since he was a freshman, but you really see what kind of quarterback he's become in that last drive.
Yeah, I think going into the game, what I thought was Jesse Mills needed to have a big game. He could not afford a game where he was throwing 2 interceptions, or when he couldn't get that offense going. He really needed to have a big game for them, and it didn't have to be a big, huge, elaborate game. It just needed to be consistent. You needed to make the passes where they needed to be. They didn't have to be 40 and 50 yard or 30 and 40 yard throws. Run those screens. Let the kids who are the athletes on that team really show their stuff, and that's exactly what happened. He got the ball to the guys where they needed it, when they needed it, and let them take those 5 and 10-yard little screen passes and make them 20 and 30 yards.
Talking with Kevin Minnick here of the Courier-Post. Kevin, another storyline of that game, which I thought was really important, was the willingness of Cedar Creek offensive coordinator Mike Isgro to kind of go outside the box and throw in some plays and take a chance. You know, you saw with that halfback option pass from Melton to Louis Patali, and then on the ensuing 2-point conversion, the throwback to Milza from Melton. Some really dynamic play calling there with the game on the line, and that's not easy for an offensive coordinator to do. That's really taking a risk.
Yeah, you know, it is taking a risk, and in a championship game like that, you probably don't want to go against the grain. You don't want to start changing the way in which you got there, but you know, they obviously must have seen something in the film study. They must have seen something in the way the West Epper was lining up during the course of the game and figured, you know, we've got talented enough athletes that it's not a stretch for us to kind of try to execute this play. And, you know, when those two plays came up, they were both wide open, and they were both executed perfectly, I'm sure, just the way that they were written up. So, you know, was it a bold move? I think it was a bold move because you don't want to try to do a quote-unquote gimmick play in a championship game like that. But obviously you could tell that play had been practiced more than just this past week, and they were able to execute that to perfection.
Talk a little bit about Pennsville. You know, a lot of people in South Jersey don't get a chance to see them much, you know, them being way down there in Salem County. But really just a great season and such an emotional win for them. Beating Clayton 28-6 and kind of dedicating that win to one of their guys who had been in an accident prior to the season. Talk about that team a little bit and how exciting that win was for those guys.
You know, going into that game, I just had this feeling that there was no way that Pennsville was going to lose the game. You know, they've been riding such an emotional high really all season long. You know, the kid you're talking in reference to is Kyle Pizzetti. You know, he was a victim of a hit and run in the middle of June, you know, even before last school year ended, I believe. And, you know, and then the kid, you know, obviously has an extremely long road back and will probably never be the same. But they kind of rallied behind him. And the family and the medical staff, you know, that have to be with him now, they brought him to the game. And that was such a huge, huge emotional time for them.
Oh, that's awesome.
They had already been, you know, pretty much dominating the game as it was. But I think, I think just seeing him on the sideline behind them, really maybe lifted them up a little bit more. And you know, they just kind of rode that win out. You know, I was convinced at halftime that the game was probably over. And you know, Pennsville for a group, you know, you have to take it for what it is. And Pennsville is a Group 1 school now. Can that Pennsville team compete with a Cedar Creek, with a Shawnee, a Timber Creek, a Williamstown, a St. Joe, a St. Augustine on a weekly basis? No. There's no way they can do that. They don't have the bodies. The kids aren't as some of those kids are just not physically made out to compete with them. But you know, you take it for what it is: a Group 1 school, a small Group 1 school, and a team that competes, a team that goes out and does what it needs to do week in and week out. And clearly, they did. They put in their time, the effort, and did everything it took to win what they could ultimately achieve. And you know, Ryan Wood just did a fabulous job with them, and he has done a great job with them for I think this was his 7th season. So, you know, that's a football team that, you know, people say, oh well, they can't be they can't beat X, Y, and Z. But you know what? Maybe they can't. But for who they have to play and the level in which they compete, they clearly can, and they surely showed that on Saturday.
I think one of the defining moments of this weekend, and really, you know, kind of serves as a reminder of what high school sports is all about. We just had a kid named Colton Bonsall on our program, a guy who, you know, made 2 tackles all season, was for all intents and purposes a bench player, but he's a senior at Cedar Creek and was just completely thrilled to be a part of that team and never gave up and showed up at practice every day, working hard, working just as hard as everybody else, knowing he wasn't going to get a lot of playing time. And that kind of stuff goes a long way in somebody's life. You know, he talked about being kind of a chubby kid coming into high school, didn't have any confidence, and here he's going to graduate as a state champion. You in all your time of covering high school sports, how cool is that to see these kids mature and be able to take that with them as they go through life, that confidence they gain from being a high school athlete and a state champion?
Sure. I don't think that every team has somebody like that. I think a lot do, but maybe not everybody. And, what people have to stop and realize is that, everybody is not going to be a superstar. Everybody is not going to you're not going to go to college and to play a sport. In most cases, probably 90 to 95% of every team, those kids are not, they're not going on. The high school football is the last time they're going to play. And it's, you hear all the time on how it's, and it's not necessarily always high school football. You can name the sport, it doesn't matter. Just being part of a team and, going through the practices, going through, winning the games, being part of the program, everybody plays a part in some way. And, some kids play their part and they're the quarterback and they're the lineman, and then other kids, maybe they're the backup and maybe they're the scout team guy, and maybe there's just one kid who's just out there and he's like, maybe he's just the emotional leader, maybe he's the funniest kid on the team, maybe he's the one who keeps everyone light and happy and smiling when things aren't going that well. Maybe he's the kid who's the 4.0 student of the football team, So I think it's important that, every team, the coaches allow kids like that to participate and be involved. These kids, they're not dumb. They realized, what, I'm probably not going to play, and that's okay. I'm going to be involved. I'm going to be with my friends. I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to maybe get some exercise to a degree, and I'm going to be a part of it in my I'm going to be a part of it in my own way. And I think that's that's okay, because everybody, obviously there's only 11 kids are going to be on the step on the field on offense, football or a soccer game or 5 on a basketball court, but everybody in some way, is an important part of a team. And I think that's that's probably one of the best parts of high school sports.
Yeah, Colton was telling me a story about it, early on in the season. After practice one day, Coach Watson came up to his car and kind of gave him a speech and said, "Hey, look, you're not going to be a starter. You're not going to play much, but I need you to promise me you'll stay with it and get everything you can out of the season." And he was like, "Coach, I never thought about quitting. I'm part of this team." So it was kind of cool to see that reaction from a kid who just got informed that he's not going to play a whole lot this season. So it really shows you the character of some of these kids.
Yeah, there's a lot of kids that, sure they want to play. Every kid wants to play. That's one of the biggest reasons why they come out for a team, because they want to play. But you have to be realistic about things sometimes, and you have to understand that there are going to be kids that are better than you. You could be a senior and a freshman could come in, and he just very well might be better than you. So, like I said, I think there's a role for everyone at the high school level, and if it comes down to having 99 kids on a team and 99 numbers and only 22 are ever going to play, well, maybe those other ones are going to get something out of it too. So you kind of have to look at it that way.
Good stuff. Thanks for taking a few minutes, Kevin. Always appreciate talking to you, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks.
Oh, you too. Thanks very much. I appreciate it.
No problem. That was Kevin Minnick of the Courier-Post